Maxwell Lewis was a 4-star recruit in high school and originally chose to forego his senior year in 2020 and train for the 2021 NBA draft, but later changed his mind and committed to Pepperdine for the 2021-22 season. Lewis had a bumpy freshman season. He was forced to miss the first 6 games due to eligibility issues and then slowly built up his minutes as the season went on. He ended up appearing in 21 games, starting the final 2, and averaging 11 points per game. He did flash some potential though, scoring over 20 points 3 times despite never cracking 30 minutes in a game. Lewis returned for his sophomore season and became the clear number 1 option for the Waves. He ended the season averaging over 17 points per game and was often tasked with creating offense by himself on a Pepperdine team that struggled their way to just 9 wins. Despite the team's struggles, Lewis displayed enough individually that he's being mocked in the late first round of the upcoming draft. The first strength for Lewis is scoring. Throughout the season, Maxwell Lewis displayed the ability to score from all levels of the floor. He shot the three-pointer reasonably well and displayed the ability to make jumpers and short shots in the mid-range and get all the way to the basket and finish. It probably goes without saying that Lewis wasn't always facing the highest level of competition playing in the West Coast Conference, but he did score 20 points in both of his matchups against Gonzaga, a team that would grab a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament and march into the Elite 8 before being ousted by the eventual champion UConn Huskies. Lewis scored well throughout the season and actually was reasonably efficient given that he was the primary focus for defenses in every game. All in all, he has a pretty good looking shot and can get to the hoop. I don't think he'll have any issues scoring at the next level. The next strength for Lewis is his ability to handle the basketball. Without Lewis's ability to handle, I'm fairly certain he would not be nearly the scorer that he is. Lewis can handle well in small spaces and is quick with the ball in his hands. Defending him one-on-one on the perimeter is challenging. If he's able to freeze you for even a split second, he can get by you and go to the basket. His handle also is helpful for him when he is playing off the ball, and he can use the threat of his three-point shot to force a hard closeout, put the ball on the deck, and get to the basket quickly. Lewis might not have the ball in his hands quite as much in the NBA, but he can certainly function as a secondary option handling the ball if needed. One weakness for Lewis is defense. To be clear, Lewis isn't a bad defender for lack of effort. He plays hard and has some nice tools. He stands 6'7" and has a plus 3-inch wingspan, giving him some potential to be a switchable defender. Where he struggles is staying in front on the perimeter and getting lost off the ball. Lewis is pretty quick on the offensive end, but for some reason his quick feet don't seem to translate to the defensive end. I'm not sure if it's a case of bad angles or what, but he seems to get beat off the dribble more than he should, and when he does get beat, he tends to get a bit handsy, resulting in cheap fouls. His other issue is playing defense away from the ball. Lewis doesn't always seem to know where he's supposed to be away from the ball and does get caught watching the ball at times. Lewis's scoring and shot creation should give him a foothold in the NBA, but to really stick in lineups he'll want to improve his technique on the defensive end. Another weakness for Lewis is turnovers. On the season, Lewis turned the ball over 3.3 times per game, amounting to a whopping 102 total turnovers on the season. This includes 5 games where he turned the ball over 6 or more times. Lewis had the ball in his hands a lot at Pepperdine, so naturally the turnovers are likely going to be a bit higher. But what Lewis did this past season is on a different level. He tied for 19th in all of Division I college basketball in turnovers per game, and was one of only 2 players in that group to also average less than 3 assists per game. This is partially due to the talent around Lewis. He at times would make great passes that didn't get paid off, but the other reason is a lot of his turnovers weren't of the bad pass variety. Lewis seems to have a bad habit of shuffling his feet before he attacks with the ball. Some refs will sort of turn a blind eye to this, but when they don't, Lewis can rack up a ton of turnovers in a game. The good news is this is a relatively easy thing to fix. Lewis just needs to work on not shuffling his feet before he puts the ball on the floor. But sometimes old habits are hard to break. It will be interesting to see if Lewis's issues continue at the next level. This first clip gives us a look into Lewis's ability as a scorer. The play begins with Lewis spotting up on the wing with no defender within 20 feet of him. His teammate swings the pass over to him as a defender charges out from under the basket to contest the potential 3. Lewis sees the defender closing out of control and puts it on the floor. He easily blows past the first defender, then elevates and scoops a layup home over the outstretched arm of a defender at the basket. With so many tools in his bag of tricks as a scorer, Lewis should be able to find a role at the NBA level. This next clip displays an example of Lewis's issue with shuffling his feet before driving the basketball. This play also begins with Lewis spotting up wide open on the wing. His teammate skips a pass over to him, and the defender gets to Lewis as the ball does. Lewis tries to jab step and cross over to drive to the hoop, but he picks up both feet before dribbling and gets whistled for the travel. Lewis can be pretty dynamic driving from the perimeter off the catch. He just needs to break the habit of shuffling his feet before he does so. Maxwell Lewis is a player that likely had his path to the NBA altered by the COVID-19 pandemic. If it weren't for COVID, maybe Lewis finishes out high school and gets recruited to a bigger school, or maybe his training for the NBA goes a bit differently. But it's also possible that maybe Lewis wasn't as ready for the NBA as he thought, and getting an opportunity to play 2 years at Pepperdine was actually helpful for his development. Regardless of how he got here, Lewis is now being scouted as a likely first-round draft pick. He has displayed a nice shot and also the ability to handle the ball and create his own shot. I think at the NBA level, we may see less of the latter, at least at the start of his career. There's no denying that there wasn't many other options at Pepperdine outside of Lewis. In the NBA, he's not going to be the clear number one option for most of, if not all of the teams. That being said, if Lewis is able to embrace and thrive in a more of an off-the-ball role at the NBA level, I could see him being a really nice piece for a team either as a starter or a player off the bench that can get you some buckets. My NBA comp for Maxwell Lewis is Kyle Kuzma. I think Lewis has a higher ceiling than Kuzma does, but Kuzma is a guy that at 6'9" can score in bunches from all levels of the floor. He's at his best playing away from the ball and knocking down threes or cutting, but he can also put it on the floor if needed. For Lewis, I think Kuzma's career might be the floor of what he can achieve in the NBA.